Hello friends, I'm Colonel Failure and this is The Colonel Reduced. Thank you very much for tuning in today, and you are a somewhat exclusive audience. The only people that are ever going to see this are my Patreon supporters, and at this current time there are indeed only 6 of you. I say only, but I love every single one of you equally. You're a marvellous bunch of individuals. And I thought that for this first reduced episode, I'd do a bit of this, this is me where I record. I look like this. Just, this is the face-voice combination going on there. Any expressions that you may observe while I'm wittering through this stuff are pretty standard. When I'm not using the keyboard, I do throw my hands around quite a lot. I'm something of an expressive speaker, as you can probably imagine. But usually I've got, kind of mouse and keyboard action going on at the same time. And as I don't want to terrify small children, this is why I opt for face cam, as I believe it's referred, in special occasions. So there you go. Here I am. Hello. Appreciate everything you see here. Anyway, thank you for opting to support the channel. It really is very much appreciated. And one of the things that I'm going to do over time is reveal exactly why I have a YouTube channel in the first place. Because, well, I think there's a fairly interesting story behind it, and certainly I think some of you may be a little surprised when you find out. But it's part of a grand experiment. Yes, and the experiment will come to a conclusion at some point, at which point I'll carry on making videos, because I really, really enjoy it. Oddly enough, games, particularly like Train Fever, I enjoy talking while I'm playing as much as I do playing in isolation. In fact, I tend to find playing in isolation a little bit dull these days. The unexpected kind of washes over you when you're internalizing your dialogue, but when you're desperately trying to sound somewhat interesting, I'll leave it up to you as to whether I pull that off or not. At the same time as keeping the flow of things running, well, then the strange and mysterious happen on a regular basis, as I'm sure you're aware. I slip up so often it's untrue. I'd love to say it's because my enhanced natural commentary is so rich and deep that it is in fact distracting me from the important business of running a train network or driving a truck, or what else am I doing at the moment? Building a medieval town, or building another train set, or wow, I never set out to be a train guy. That was just something that came along. I like management games. As the recent rebranding of the channel demonstrated, I build stuff. Those are the games I like. I like management games, games where you build stuff, but fundamentally I like games where I have the choice of exactly how to play it. Scripted, linear adventures or puzzle games where you have to think in exactly the same way as the designers. Platform games particularly, they drive me up the wall. I am not one for whom the prescribed path is one that I choose to take. I don't know if this is some kind of juvenile stubborn streak on my part, or whether it's, I don't know, something psychological. Who the hell knows? But no, I like games where they dump you in the world and go, have at it. It's all yours. Here are the tools you have. Yes, you may unlock more along the way, but fundamentally, this is what you got. Go play it. And hopefully that's resonating through my channel. I haven't done a Minecraft series yet, but I could. Dear me, have I sunk time into Minecraft. It's the perfect game as far as I'm concerned. It really does just dump you in the world and go, there you go, imagination, throw it away. particularly the Techit mod and the Technic Pack kind of spin-off stuff. All of the automation stuff in that, I had a whale of a time. I built this amazing power station at one point. It would basically look like cooling towers, and inside it I had kind of mining drills and refining and all sorts of stuff. 3 of these mining towers with automated lighting and all kinds of stuff. Magnificent. Of course, that save has completely disappeared in the way that so many games are just, transitory stuff. But there you go. So I may do Minecraft at some point. What I'll probably do is, in the way that I've done with a couple of channel updates in the past, is I've kind of been in a game while talking about it. And that's what led to me doing a slightly erratic, slightly temporary kind of Elite dalliance, is because my kind of channel update was done in Elite. And don't get me wrong, I rate Elite very highly, but holy cow, it's a dry game. It's not one where much happens, especially when you're doing trading like I do. I'm working towards getting a better ship simply to have the better ship. I have no real desire outside of that. I don't have any long-term goals in terms of picking up combat ability or any of that kind of stuff. What I'd love them to introduce would be multiplayer ships whereby crew functions were filled with other people, and then where you could actually go and build your own moon base or something along those lines. That would be my thing, with automation and mining, and then you have to arrange AI ships to come in and trade with you and all. You can see how that would float my boat. Elite. I picked up a few viewers on the channel update, and as a result I thought, well, let's do a couple of Elite videos, but I just found them so hard to do because it's a real bugger to actually make them sound interesting. So that's Elite out the window. So Minecraft may or may not go the same way. Anyway, enough of this, general waffling. What are we going to cover in the Kernel Reduced? Should be some kind of fanfare thing going on here. I can't be bothered. Basically, this is your director's behind-the-scenes cut plus outtakes DVD extra kind of a thing. And like most DVDs, the quality range will be patchy. Some of it will be quite entertaining, some of it will be a little bit dry. It'll be more of me wittering on, and it will be exclusive. But what I want to do more than anything else is kind of explain some of the stuff that I've picked up as a YouTube genius such as I am, so that if you have proclivities in that direction with regards to maybe starting your own recording processes, or whether you're just interested to understand the nuts and bolts behind how some of this stuff goes on, I will do my best to lift the veil. And I have learned a heck of a lot about the inner workings of YouTube and how to generate success from it. And if you ever take the time to kind of study the infrastructure of my channel, you will see that actually there's some methodology going on in there. If you can be bothered with that, then knock yourself out. I will answer questions. But yeah, I'll reveal everything that I've kind of picked up along the way. And if and when my grand project of the secret variety ever comes to a close, then you will have questions. Ooh, I don't doubt it. And I will have answers. It's a two-way street kind of a deal. So you're just going to have to wait for that to happen. You could solve the mystery of what the secret project is. It is possible for you to do so. It's not a challenging thing to pull off. But you're just going to have to see. Element of mystery. That's me. Ooh, terribly mysterious. Anyway, let's start with a couple of things that it happens on a regular basis. Okay, so immediately before recording an episode of anything, right, I have a separate tool to record my audio independent from the game volume. Now, in the past, I used a piece of software called DxTory. Magnificent piece of software. recorded at very high quality, but you were talking about 200 gigabytes, I guess, of data when you recorded raw video, and that's in like a 25-30 minute video. And it could record 2 channels separately, and that's important because you have your game sound over here, and then you have me talking into my microphone, of which can you see it? No, you can't. I'll show you what that is in a moment. And then my dulcet tones going. Oh yes, you can. It's just there. There's my microphone. Yeah, my dulcet tones would then be on a separate channel, which would allow me to balance things out independently and make sure that the volume was set properly. If you've watched any of my early stuff, you'll see that I used software that was blending both channels together, and the upshot was that sound quality was patchy, if not completely crap on a regular basis. Some of the early Train Fever stuff I was recording in a piece of software called Bandicam. Avoid Bandicam. It has its purposes. The best thing it does is it allows you to draw a little rectangle on the screen and just capture whatever the hell is going on in there. That's quite useful. But in terms of gaining a consistent frame rate to record against, it's totally hopeless. Anyway, DX Story was my saviour, was the glorious thing in which I recorded, up until I took the upgrade to Windows 10. Now, I've got no real problems with Windows 10, other than the fact it screwed my network up to start with, but I've since fixed that. Sorry, I was looking to see if the recording had stopped. Shall I tell you about that now? Yeah, hell, I digress in everything I do, so I might as well do it here as well. This is the second version of this flaming video that I've recorded. The first one, I could not, actually we're on sound, so it's related. I could not synchronize sound to video for the life of me. So I'm using Logitech's very own software to see if this will do the trick. And if it doesn't, I will yell at things. And, you know, I'll figure out another way of doing it. Anyway, yes, so now I record things separately, but DX Story stopped working with under Windows 10, so I now use Fraps. And so I have Fraps running, I have my audio software running, I have the game running. And before heading into each video, I do a little countdown. I go recording in 3, 2, 1, and then I hit F12, which is my record key, which always makes a little clack, which shows up very nicely as a peak on the audio editor, which allows me to synchronize exactly the start of the video recording with my voiceover. It sounds terribly complicated, and really my other half looks at me on a regular basis, and she constantly berates me for making things more complicated than they need to be. But you know, that's just how it goes. But the upshot is that I then have full control over all the sound. Hooray! Which means that the game music being too loud or underplayed, this and that and the other being too loud, just shouldn't happen anymore. These days I tend to have 5-6 different audio tracks overlaid throughout the course of an episode. Even something like Factorio, something as simple as that, I have a standalone version of their soundtrack, Factorio soundtrack, that I play underneath, so that I can mix and match the volumes to kind of match what's going on. It's a lot of fuss and a lot of effort, but I think the end result is worth it. Anyway, it doesn't usually go well first time, and this is why this might possibly be interesting. So I've got a couple of audio clips only of what happens in the 30 seconds before the video you usually see. So let's have a listen to those. Hello friends, I'm Colonel Failure, and this is Train Fever. Yes, it is Train Fever. It's not A Train. Okay, let's have another crack at that one. Hello friends, I'm Colonel Failure, and this is Train Fever with my own custom-built North Atlantic map. Aren't I clever? You join me currently, and in a break from normal proceedings. I'm not following a vehicle. I'm looking at the magnificent. Recording 3, 2, 1. Ah, knickers. Ignore that. That was not it. Tits. No, don't do that. Let's do the thing again. Recording in 3, 2, 1. Oh, I've just done exactly the same thing again. What an idiot. No, I don't want to continue. So there you go. That was all entirely genuine. I have no need to make up moments of me completely losing my mind or just, you know, general mental breakdowns while I'm recording. If you watched any number of episodes, you'll have seen it happen while on stuff that I've put out. It just kind of, I lose the plot for a moment. I'm like a magpie. I focus on the thing that I think sounds most interesting, and before you know it, everything's gone skew with. So yeah, so those were just they're pretty normal. In the latter one, and I think that was a banished I was doing. Basically what had happened is I'd got my game running over here, and I'd got the audio software over there, and I'd got fraps up and ready to rock. And normally what I do is I set my audio software recording, then load the game, because obviously I can trim off all of the excess audio, and it doesn't use too big a file to do so. And then hit record, you know, do my 3, 2, 1 in record. But for some reason that day I decided to do it the other way around. So I'd hit record on the audio thing, then do my 3, 2, 1, hit the fraps button, and I was still in the audio thing. And to make it worse, I did that. I went, oh no, that's not quite right. Stopped it, then did exactly the same thing again. I frankly despair. There will come a point where I basically can't do any of this stuff because I'm just, you know, raving buffoon. Anyway, right, what shall I show you next? Let's talk hardware. Everybody likes to see hardware of people who do this stuff, just for compare and contrast purposes. I get that. So let's talk PC here. All right, I'm not going to pick it up and show you or anything ridiculous like that. You can use the power of your imagination, or search for it on that there internet. So the beast on which I record is a pretty good PC. It's got an Intel i7 4790, and you can tell I've got it written down. 4790K, which is the overclocking one. Now, I don't do overclocking, never have, probably never will, despite the fact that these days it's an absolute doddle to do. I firmly hold to the belief that if you make the thing go faster than it's supposed to go, or you strain it more than it's supposed to go, you decrease the lifespan. And as you can possibly see behind me, there's a couple more PCs behind me. So that's where herself resides on a very regular basis, and she will be very soon when the Witcher DLC comes out. The woman's obsessed. And she's having a relationship with Geralt that, you know, I don't fully understand. But there you go, it makes her happy. And so yes, occasionally in the background you will hear, in the background of my actual videos, rather than this vlog, I believe the young people call it. Yes, occasionally you'll hear her in the background. If I say something particularly pithy, she might laugh. I made a One Direction gag. I know, me, I'm hip with the times, despite the fact they've split up now. How should I even know this? A couple of weeks ago, and I made her chuckle. Equally, occasionally she's trying to do work back there, in which case you will hear manic typing in the background. Now, you hear manic typing from me on a very regular basis, because I sport this DAS keyboard, which is, lovely. It's very nice. Mechanical keyboard. Now, whether you believe mechanical keyboards make you faster or more accurate or whatever, it's neither here nor there as far as I'm concerned. I just like the feel of it. In fact, I'll stop shaking the desk quite so much. I'm not in an earthquake zone. So yes, my keyboard, which is a regular star of the show, or rather unscripted regular part of the show with me typing. What is quite nice though is if I'm doing if I'm naming something in the game and I say, we'll call this one opportunity number 7, hearing the typing along with it, I think adds a certain frisson of reality to paint whatever picture you like out of that one, friends. But I could get a little quiet keyboard so it doesn't interfere with the recording. It doesn't help, of course, that the microphone is directly above where my keyboard lives. The other star of the show that doesn't get a credit is this flaming chair, right, that creaks and makes groaning noises on a regular basis. I am a larger gentleman. I make no bounds about that. And at some point, Colonel Failure's exotic fitness program may become a DVD that you can go and buy or maybe stream from Netflix. I'll let you know if it happens. But at the moment, it's the chair that gets the work out rather than myself. Sometimes it decides to make a little guest commentary or two on the videos. So that's those. What else haven't I talked about? Right, back to the computer. Computer's also, it's got 16 gig of RAM. It's good RAM. Now, I've built tons of PCs. I should know exactly what all this stuff is, but I've never gone in for all of that. Oh, yeah, I'll add an extra 5% spec to that to really get the most. No, that's not me. I go for, is the price right, and what are the reviews like, and is it good? Ticks those boxes, I'll pick it up. But yes, as mentioned, the PCs behind me here, you can see two. So that's herself. That's one of several daughters. And then the ones you can't see, there are another 4 in here. 3 boys and another daughter. Another daughter still is elsewhere. That's why I'm so grey. I'm actually 27. So yes, yeah. Basically, there are a lot of children around here. Don't blame me. All right, you can blame me. But there you go. So yes, at weekends when we decide to do a little bit of gaming action, having 7 people all in the same room playing together is absolutely wonderful. I heartily recommend it. If you've got children, grandchildren, it's just the best in the world. And I'm not made of money, all right? I've got relatively decent kit, but I am far from being a solvent individual. That's mostly because I'm erratic with everything. But yeah, most of this is cannibalized stuff from parts that I've previously bought, previously used, that I then build new bits out of. You'll buy a new hard disk and a new PSU and a motherboard, and you're off and rolling. You've got another PC for 150 quid. So over the years, I've built up loads of those, and 7-player Minecraft is a great deal of fun. There we go. But that goes back to what I was saying about overclocking. The reason I don't do it is because I want to reuse the hardware. It's as simple as that. And then my graphics card. I've got an NVIDIA GTX 970, which for those of you who follow such things is the 4GB model that everybody made such a fuss about because it doesn't allow you to use all 4GB. I was like, pretty cheap card, pretty powerful. In terms of bang for buck, it really does deliver. So I didn't get overexcited about that in the slightest. Hell of a card, totally recommend it. It's a couple of years old now, and I can play everything on absolutely, nosebleed, turn it all on. So there we go. So that's hardware. Let's do some more hardware. I use one of these. This is a Razer Abyssus, and the reason I do that is because I'm left-handed. And I use the mouse in my left hand. I can also use I can also use the mouse in my right hand. However, I choose not to because annoying right-handed people is one of the things I take great delight in. Left hand, wrong hand, so I'm pig-headed along those lines. The Abyssus, mighty fine mouse. It's ambidextrous. It's the best mouse I've found so far. Right-handed mice. I did nothing winds me up more than the 10 best gaming mice article, because I will go 8 of these you can't use. See, even thinking about it's starting to make me a bit bleak, bit grim, bit pitchforks, torches, that kind of behaviour. I will move on. Right, okay, and then sound. What do I record sound through? Okay, so I have a microphone here. I'll try not to make this too loud. Hello, here's the microphone, right? As you can see, it's a Shure SM58. Now, the reason for using the Shure SM58 is it's otherwise known as the legendary vocal microphone. There's their catch line for it. But if you go into any recording studio in the world, they will have several of these. They are a mighty fine microphone for recording voice. And in one of my many former escapades, I have been the vocalist in a band or two. So I happen to have one. I think, oh, I'll rig all this up. And the quality was great, as you can probably appreciate. And that runs through a Behringer mixer that I have on the desk in case I want multiple kind of external sources of audio, which I can mix then independently, which then goes into the sound card in the back of the PC. Now, when it comes to actually doing stuff of an editorial nature, see, this is the behind-the-scenes stuff that you came to expect, the equipment of the pros. I've spoken about audio software already. I use Adobe Audition. Not everybody's first choice. It's perfectly capable. It's basically, if you're familiar with the free software, Audible? No, that's Audacity. That's what it's called. If you're familiar with Audacity, it's basically a more fully featured, highly more complicated and very good bit of equivalent to using Audacity. And I use that. All of the kind of overlay graphic stuff that you see on a regular basis, the static stuff, I do in Photoshop. So I do my, Adobe Photoshop. So thumbnails and little drop titles and the logo and things like that, they're all done in Photoshop. I then, for swizzy intros and clever swooshy, I'll do a swooshy thing here. Right, okay, that's all done in Adobe After Effects. You're starting to see a pattern, I'm sure. And then I edit the whole thing together in anyone? Adobe Premiere. And the reason for this Adobe fixation of mine is simply because back in the day I learned how to use Photoshop by using a hooky copy of Photoshop. I'm not proud of using a hooky copy of Photoshop, but I didn't feel that paying 500 quid for one piece of software was reasonable. And I always said, if they ever drop it to 100 quid, I'll buy it, and that will be done with it. They introduced Elements, which I thought it's not as good as the 4-year-old version that I've been using for 4 years, so I stuck with that. But then they offered Adobe Cloud. I'm not sponsored by them in any way. This is all just, personal preference stuff. They offered up Adobe Cloud, which is 35-40 quid a month. And for that, you get everything from Adobe. And this is, there's a lot of pro-level stuff in there. And I thought, well, I've learned Photoshop. And the reason I was looking in the first place, or the reason I was tempted in the first place, I needed a new web editing tool because my old one I'd lost the disk or some such. And the old one was a thing called HomeSite, which had been bought by Adobe and worked into Dreamweaver. So I thought, well, if I can get a cheap version of Dreamweaver, that'll replace it. And then I got into doing this video making behavior, and I went, I need something to edit with. Premiere. So let's price those up. Like 300 quid each. Flame heck, I'm not going to afford that. Then they introduced the cloud, and I thought, well, I'm going to use Photoshop. That's a given. I'll use Dreamweaver. I won't use the Dreamweaver functionality, but it's got the home site editor built into it. It's just an HTML editor. It just color codes your tags and finishes them off for you and that kind of stuff. It's really great. It's what I learned on back in 1990s. It's like a friend to me. And I thought, well, Premiere, I'll do some video editing in Premiere. And I thought, After Effects, I could learn that. That's what they do all those special effects in movies with. And I thought, well, having Acrobat to hand, that's probably pretty handy. It's got an audio edit. You see where I'm going with this. So yeah, the justification was quite simple, but that's why I have the 60 quid a month goal on Patreon is, would you mind paying my Adobe subscription? And you fine people are contributing towards that goal. Yeah, yeah. The second goal is a little bit bigger than that, but we'll worry about that when we get to it. You're early adopters. You're all safe. You're all good in my book. I'll invite you to the party and send you a suitable invitation when the time comes. So that's how I put all of this stuff together. Now, in terms of how long that takes, let's step this back. First thing I do is I watch the last 10 minutes of the previous episode. These days I record 2 episodes of everything back to back. So if you're watching Train Fever, you will either be watching the first part or the first episode or the second episodes. Now that keeps it all nice and fresh in my head in between the two, but then it'll be another week before I record another 2. If you're watching something like A Train, I'll record 2, and that'll be the last time I touch it for 3-4 weeks, because that's a bi-weekly series. And so I watched the last 10 minutes of the previous episode just to refamiliarise myself with any ridiculous promises that I'd made that I was going to follow through on. I rarely follow through on such ridiculous promises, but I am quick to promise, which makes me somewhat inconsistent. Yes, so I watched the first 10 minutes of that episode, so 10 minutes. I then set up the game, make sure it's all updated and the rest of it. I get Audition running over here. I get Fraps running on there. I use Fraps now because it's basic and it does the job. What more can you want? Then I load up the game, and I pause it if it's a game that can be paused, and I have a quick look around just to kind of go, that's over there and this is here, because there have been a couple of episodes where I haven't done this level of diligence, I guess you'd call it, and it's incredibly obvious that I have no idea what's going on this map in the slightest. I just kind of and so you end up filling for the first 2 or 3 minutes just to desperately go, what am I going to do with this? But now I plan. I'm still a one-take Charlie for the majority of the time. I still try and do everything in one hit. First take, this is the best take. Largely because if you do it in multiple takes, you end up losing spontaneity. And some of the stuff that I like the best in terms of listening to my own stuff back again, which to begin with I hated it, but now I'm quite comfortable with it, and once again I get no small amount of you watching your own videos. I go, it's important, I need to understand if there were some good bits in it. But yeah, so thrown yourself off there, man. Yeah, one take, right? I try and do everything in one take. This is, 2 takes. I had one before we listened to me cocking things up, and we've had one afterwards. And the whole thing is a second take, because the first take got eaten by erratic frame rates and desynchronization of audio. Beautiful. Everything's coming up brilliantly. Yes, so, and then... So I look around the map for a couple of minutes just to refamiliarise myself with where we're going. And I kind of come up at that point with some form of planette of what I'm going to get up to in that episode. At which point I zero the timer on... Oh, come on, this would be good to show off. Oh, no, show it. There we go. See? I show this off. I start this running. This starts running when I start recording. Because I need to... I try to time things to get into a 20 to 30 minute kind of area. If it comes up under 20 minutes, there's usually a good reason for it. And that will be because it's part of a 2-parter, or I ran out of time, or as occasionally happens, I run out of disk space while I'm recording. And nothing is more disappointing. The latest, episode 20 of Banished, I ran out of... Watch the end section. I ran out of disk space while recording that. Fortunately, I managed to cover it like a total pro, and I did one of those swooshy things to cover the cut, despite the fact it didn't really need one. But it was right at the end. It was literally like 30 seconds to go. Yeah, so usually 20 to 30 minutes, and I keep this running to make sure that I'm within that range. The reason for 20 to 30 minutes we'll go into in the next one of these, right? Okay, I'll talk a little bit about methodology. Could I go longer? Oh, hell yes. Were my internet connection anything other than hellish, then I would stream. Maybe not all the time, but my goal, as soon as British Telecom could get their finger out of whatever they've got their finger in and get fibre optic finished. They've had the cabinet up for the last 3 months. I'll explain why this is a big deal as I meander through my story. Anyway, yeah, 20 to 30 minutes, of which I've already spent 15 beforehand. After I get the thing recording, I record the thing, and then I port it all into our friend Premiere, which pre-renders it all out so that I can skip through it and do it in real time. I then match up the audio to the video. I then get the sound levels right between the game volume and the microphone volume. I then add in any other audio that I've put together for that particular episode, and all that sits in a template, and the template already has my smashing intro, whatever the smashing intro of the day is, and a splendid outro, whatever that happens to be. I've made it more complicated recently, so these days there's always a recommended series at the end of each episode. Again, I'll cover that in methodology a little bit, but that takes a little bit of time to find a suitable bit of footage and bring that in. I then scan through the video as a whole. I'll have probably rewatched it. Usually about 75% I'll have rewatched, particularly if I make note of the fact. Truck Sim is a perfect example of this, is if I've stacked the truck in a pretty spectacular fashion, and through no intent of my own I've let out a child unfriendly expletive. I can't forgive myself that kind of behaviour. So, you know, I'll bleep that out and make sure that everything cuts together. The other thing in Truck Sim as well is radio freedom, which everybody hates. I thought it was really quite good. Sometimes it's a bit loud, but I thought it was really good. Everybody hates it, so it's going. I'll put on Jazz FM or, you know, Easy Smooth Ride or something like that. But basically, it's a radio station that I put together. I get some library music, which, for those of you unfamiliar with the term, it's basically Muzak, right? It's stuff that you can just license to use in adverts or all kinds of stuff. And as part of my being in the broadband TV network, I get access to a huge library of music. So I grab tracks that I think are appropriate in a thematic sense. A-Train's a good example of this. The tunes I run in the background of A-Train aren't from the game. That's library music that I think, based on the music that is in the game. The reason I'm not using that is because it only plays every like 7 or 8 minutes, and as such it's really disconcerting to have it suddenly kick in. So I put my own, like, hopefully unobtrusive soundtrack behind it, because me talking in isolation, you'll notice I've got a soundtrack going on here. Or have I? What did I decide to do? Maybe I went without a soundtrack. Okay, we'll go without a soundtrack so you can see what I mean. Yeah, see, I'm making an editorial decision right here and now, and you were there to appreciate it. Yeah, so I'll usually have some kind of music soundtrack behind me, because voice on its own, particularly when you've got sound effects on its own, it doesn't unify all the time. As much as, you know, I can read the phone book all day, and I'll put plenty of, interesting rise and fall type stuff in there. So, you know, I do put a little bit of effort into making sure that I'm not just muttering, flaming villagers catching dysentery, that kind of stuff, which, you know, I figure people kind of enjoy on an occasional basis. I do make a fair amount of effort to make sure I'm not doing it all the time. There you go. Yeah, so I've edited the thing. I then have to render it, and what rendering basically does is it compiles all the stuff you've got in your edit and blats it out in the format. I'm using technical language here. Blats it out in the format that you need the finished product in. Now, all of those raw files put together, you're probably approaching 200 gigabytes in total. When it's finished its blat run, it will be down to anywhere between sort of 3 and 4 gigabytes. So there's quite a bit of compression goes on there. And the rendering process really depends on how complicated it is, the stuff you're trying to put together. So the more whiz bang that you have going on in there, the longer it will take to do. But this is where having an i7 and 16 gig of RAM really comes into its own, because that speeds the process up. And as such, a 25-minute video will usually get rendered in around 15 minutes. That's acceptable. So while that's happening, I potter off and go get a drink and all that kind of stuff. And then I come back upstairs, having scanned through the whole video to find the screenshot I want to use for the thumbnail. And there's a lot of methodology that goes into a thumbnail, as anybody who, you know, listens to what YouTube tell you, it is very important. And at some point, let's put that in the methodology episode. That's episode 2 in this series of however many. Obviously, if nobody's subscribing in a particular month, I won't do one. So, you know, that's a reason to keep doing it. Anyway, so I've edited, I've rendered. I then name the thing. I put the screenshot together, which is about 10 minutes. Who am I kidding? It's about 3 minutes. It's about a bit of resizing, bit of recoloring to kind of sharpen it up for those who see it, the smaller image. Properly placing the titles in there, double checking that I've got the episode number correct. Doesn't always work. And then I'll set it to upload. Now, before I set it to upload, I run it through a program called Handbrake. And what Handbrake does is it compresses the file further. And the reason for this is that a 600 megabyte, not gigabyte, megabyte file will take about 4 hours to upload on my net connection. And during that time, forget about surfing the web. Right, the 600 gig. So basically, 600 meg. So basically, I upload overnight. Once upon a time, I was trying to do 2 videos a day like a madman, and what eventually finished that off was that the second I had any kind of Windows update that would restart my PC while I was mid-upload, it would just throw the whole thing out. So yeah, upload is my bottleneck at the moment. That and spare time. The reason I managed to keep up the pace that I do keep up is I don't really do much else. I go to work, drive to work, come back from work, have something to eat, record a couple of videos. That's the dream. And recently I've cut back the number that I do from 7 a week, a bit hit or miss, but mostly I hit 7. I went out on 4 a week. And I'll explain why in the methodology episode, because it's interesting, okay? I certainly find it interesting, and you may well do as well. And we'll go into a little bit of, you know, what am I trying to do growth-wise and that kind of stuff. Anyway, look, you've had ages on this, right? You can't just put me on a microphone and say, just talk about stuff, because I will. Anyway, right, let's do some kind of wrap-up stuff here. And then, okay, it's uploaded onto YouTube. You know, it takes 4 hours. I check the following morning, and as often as not, it's all screwed up. And on those rare occasions, I will take a memory stick with the video in, and I will secretly upload it from work. Shh. Anyway, so then I will write all the description and tag it and make all the annotations work at the end, and I will schedule it to go out at a particular time and a particular day. And if I've done everything right, it goes out at the right time on the right day. Right time? 2 p.m. British time. So let's say effectively 1 p.m. UTC, Universal Time Code there. Is it time code? All right, 1 p.m. GMT. There you go, that works. That's the time I publish. Any earlier than that, and it doesn't percolate high enough when my friends in North America wake up and are looking for stuff. Any later than that, and I miss some of the lunchtime, I'll just check a quick video from those in Europe. These are the types of things I take into consideration. YouTube itself says you should upload at 6 p.m. GMT, because that way you get the East Coast in the morning, you get the West Coast a little bit later. You hit prime time for GMT and Europe folk, but that's when everybody publishes. So I try and get out at an earlier stage, and it seems to be working quite well. Anyway, more on that next time. What else do I want to talk about? Is there anything else? No, that's about it. And then I'd try my best to answer all the comments that come up, or at least, you know, give a thumbs up and say, nice comment. Because you've taken the time to watch the thing, you've taken the time to make a comment, I take the time to respond. If I reach the point where I have so many comments coming in on every video that it's physically impossible for me to answer them, I might buy a sports car, because that would be the kind of indicator going on, at which point I'd still try and answer all the comments, because that's part of the big secret. Anyway, I'm going to wrap it up here. So I invite you, friends, 6 of you. Hopefully next month there may be a couple more, but I take nothing for granted. I'm incredibly grateful you've decided to support the channel in this way. I'm not in it for the cash. Although if I had enough cash coming in so I could go into work one day and say, hey boss, I'm going to be a full-time YouTubist, then, you know, I'm comfortable with that. But it's a pipe dream, frankly. The games I cover are far too nerdy for that kind of behaviour, and that's because I like nerdy games. But you see, you've derailed yourself again with a freaking segue. Right, yes, so Q&A. You have questions, I have answers. I can't tell you about the secret project because it's the punchline to the project is the reveal of the thing, right? Can't give you any more detail than that. It's nothing sinister, and hopefully it's quite interesting, and I will reveal everything behind it as soon as that's done, because you chums, we're in this, right? Yeah, Q&A. You got a question, random though it may be, and I'll answer it if I can. Nothing is off limits, but I'm going to offer, this will be behind the scenes. It will be, what have I got brewing, what have I got planned, a little bit about the thought process that goes into the stuff that I do. Outtakes, if and when I have them, I will always put in one of these, because I'm very comfortable with sounding like a complete buffoon, and I think that you've gone as far as to sub here, so I figure that you're on board with the buffoonery that I get up to. So thank you very much for watching today. I've been Colonel Failure. Now, one more thing before I go, and this is something you can respond to. 2 more things before I go. Which order shall I do them in? Let's do this one first. Okay, this is a serious question. Okay, so while you support me on Patreon, you get to see Colonel Reduced, this video. Do you want me to leave it up or take it away after the month that it's been up? So basically, if you pay for the month of February, for the sake of argument, because I appreciate that some of you might just kind of go like, well, look, I want to chip in a little bit, but you're not Netflix, mate. No matter how capable you may think you are, I'm not going to be contributing that kind of money. That's totally cool. Any contribution is most welcome. So after the month that you're there for, should I delete the episode so that it is gone forever? It is a moment in time that is being captured and released afterwards, or would you prefer that I keep it up so that people who subscribe in the future, or people who support in the future, I should say, can see all of the back episodes? The choice is yours. I really don't mind either way. I'll probably keep a local copy, but if the handshake agreement that you and I have together is, if you say you're not to publish that again, I won't, unless it's in some kind of documentary after I've had 5% more subscribers than PewDiePie, and they want to know what makes the greatest YouTube celebrity on the internet tick. Sound like a reasonable deal? I'm happy to leave them up, happy to take them down, your choice entirely. So that's the question, right? Answer that question. The other question is, I already know the answer to this one, but I had this notion of Colonel Failure, right? So, why am I not... always leave your props within easy reach, you idiot. So why not properly Colonel that failure? Now, admittedly, this is a Vietnam era American service helmet going on here, complete with all of that kind of business. It's a real one, it's a real one. For some reason, I do occasionally go charging about in the woods pretending to be an American serviceman during the Vietnam War. I don't know either. Anyway, thanks for watching today. I've been Colonel Failure. Next time around, methodology and all that kind of stuff. That's the one other thing, is if you are relieved of your Patreon donation and you haven't had an episode of this, you know, a new one come out, let me know. Send me a message by YouTube or whatever. If you're doing like a 1 month sub, just to kind of go, there you go, Gov, have a couple of quid. And you miss out on the video, let me know and I'll make sure you get access to it, because I appreciate the hell out of what you're doing, and no one should be deprived of the thing that they said, oh, that sounds like it might be quite interesting. So anyway, thanks for that. See, look, wrecked the hair. Don't mess up the hair. The hairstyle is referred to as a bad Elvis, by the way. Thanks for watching. I've been Colonel Failure. Keep watching videos. Cheerio.